So welcome to Beauty of Colors podcast, Wendy. It's great to have you on the show.
Thanks for having me. I'm
You're
excited to
very,
be here.
you're very welcome. So tell the listeners about you and what drove you into writing your books.
I've been a teacher, school teacher for 19 years, working mostly in special education preschool. And I unfortunately was taken out. I was diagnosed last October with psoriatic arthritis, and which left me immune compromised. And with the demographic of children I work with, it's very hard to not get sick. But I had gone on intermittent FMLA, and then when COVID started to spike after the new year, my doctors agreed that it's best for me because of the medication I take that leaves me immune compromised to be out fully from work. And then that kind of led me into writing. It was one of these things where I had made a promise to my son when he went off to college that I would start writing. I've always written, especially poetry, but it was for myself. It was private. It was, very intimate, and I would just share it with like the immediate family. Which is interesting because even like my sister-in-law was like, I didn't even know you did this. And I'm like, well, certain things like that's mine, And so I made a promise to my son to keep writing. And when I was home, I went through a little bit of identity crisis when all of my colleagues went back to work in January. It's for 19 years, it was, who are you? Oh, I'm a teacher. What do you do? I'm a teacher. That was my identity. And then when it was taken away, and I wasn't physically able to do all the things that I enjoy, like yoga. I'm also a certified yoga instructor. And I had this time at home. It was really eye-opening, like, okay, what are you going to do? I had the poor me moment, as we all do, where it's like, okay, I'm going to be sad. And then you get over yourself. It's like, enough is enough, get over yourself. And I just pulled all of my poetry from my college years up to the present. I just turned 50 last month, and I realized as I was gathering them that it was really a memoir of going from, those late teens when you graduate, and it's like, okay, who am I? I've been what I was expected to be, what your parents raise you, their moral compass, they drop, give to you. And it's like, okay, now who am I? Now I get to choose what I believe and what I want to do. And all of these paths are actually up to me now. And what do I do with that? To now that I'm 50, of like, you get to the age where you're like, you know what, this is who I am. This is me. And it's all of those stages. And I realized through my writing that there was this big growth from the insecurity of being this young adult, of not knowing who I am and what I believe and what my self-worth is, to where I am now, where I'm a parent, and I'm a mom, I'm a wife, but I'm also me, and I'm okay with who I am.
Yeah, that's nice. So you've been writing for a while, Wendy. Why did it take you so long to publish? You could have published, when you started writing. Why did it take you so long?
Fear, self-doubt. It's a lot of, imposter syndrome. Who do you think you are? I was a journalism major, and I worked in broadcast television as a graphics person for a while, for 7 years. And I just had a lot of self-doubt, a lot of insecurity. I always loved writing, but putting myself out there and having a voice was very, very scary. I think a lot of it had to do with the way I was brought up. I was brought up in a hardcore born-again Christian Pentecostal household, and you're taught what to believe and what to do and what's expected of you. And I didn't feel like what I was thinking was allowed or was okay to voice.
Mm-hmm.
There's, in my book of poetry, there's some strong poems about, like, I don't believe that. I don't believe everyone's going to hell. I don't believe that you have to only be a Christian. I don't believe that, people have to live in this box. Like, there's room for exploration, and there's acceptance, a lot of acceptance. And I realized that a lot. I think when I married, my husband is Jewish. And when I started to explore his religion to understand it, I realized that it was leave the world a better place than the one you came into. How beautiful is that? Everybody is welcome. Not, oh, you're going to hell. You don't have Jesus Christ. You're going to hell. You're going to hell. You're going to hell. And there's nothing wrong with everyone having those beliefs. But for me, the way that I took that stuff in, it was very much be the good little girl, do what you're told, don't bend the rules, don't,
So
go
basically,
against.
so basically, you were living your life what somebody else told you. You were not living your life for you. You were living your life to please your surroundings and to please your family.
Yeah, I wasn't living authentically.
Okay.
Not at all. And I think a lot of it came when obviously I met my husband, but then having children and realizing, like, I want my kids to grow up to discover who they want to be and what they want to believe in, and introduce them to all the things, and then let them decide and make their own path. And there's a lot of that in my book about my journey to finding my path. And I realized, like, I might not be religious, but I'm spiritual. I'm a very spiritual person. I'm very, spiritual being. And I think we all are just these beautiful spiritual beings living in a human experience.
Okay. So
Yeah.
what do you mean, Wendy, when you say put down the generational backpack? What do you mean by that?
It's all the weight of things that came before you. I worked with this beautiful mentor years ago when I was doing my yoga training, and she talked a lot about our generational trauma and how we still carry that weight, and how it's okay to, it's so funny because I just saw a meme of this morning where it was a father who was blocking the previous generations, and he turned to his son and he said, I love you and I'm so proud of you. And it was like, oh my goodness, that's amazing. Because, previous generations, some of them did not express that.
Oh, yeah.
It's so true. Like, my grandmother was from Portugal, and off the boat from Portugal, both my grandparents immigrated from Portugal, and she had to be the submissive wife.
Tradition.
Yes.
Yeah, some people are stuck in tradition, and it takes a while for one person to actually break the cycle.
Yeah. And I think each generation, to a degree, decides, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to, like, my mother was very much like, I'm not going to allow anybody to hit me. Where my grandmother was like, that was just what your husbands did.
Okay.
It was just, they were very hardcore. You do what I say or you get the backhand. Where my mother was like, yeah, that's not happening in my house, and my dad was like, okay. So I think a lot of it is the weight that we carry on from previous generations, and deciding to let go of so much that we've carried, whether it's from the way we were raised, from our parents, from the expectations of society, you
Yeah.
know, environmental. And that's the big thing that, you think of nature versus nurture. And in my profession, a lot of it is like, okay, is this what's happening or what we're seeing in this child? Is this child's behavior, or is this environmental?
Mm-hmm.
Because if you take that child out of that environment, you could have a completely different child.
It's true. I think studies have shown that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Wendy, what's the message in your children's book?
So my children's book is called Maggie Malone and Her Imagination, and it's about children not losing their imagination. And after having taught for so many years and seeing that shift of technology taking over, especially after the pandemic, and we had COVID babies, we call them our COVID babies. They
COVID
didn't know how to play. It was, and I get it. Parents are working from home. There's a lot of hours in the day to fill, especially when you have a child that isn't school age yet. It's easy to hand off the tablet. And I was just finding kids coming in. I'd even say, yeah, within the last 5 or 6 years, they'd be coming to my classroom and they wouldn't know what to do. You'd give them all of these, they'd have all of these toys and things, and they didn't know how to play with them. And I had to sit them down in our play kitchen and okay, you get the cup, you're the mom, I'm the grandma, here's the baby, feed the baby, wash, like what's going over and opening a play kitchen and just dumping all the stuff out. Okay, what are we going to make today? We're going to make it like in the book, they're going to make pizza. And when Maggie's mom says in the book, and it occurs to Maggie's mom, maybe she doesn't know how to use her imagination. She's like, all right, let's make a pizza. And Maggie immediately runs to the kitchen. And it's like, no, come back. Let's go to your play kitchen. Let's take out the ingredients. Let's pretend. Bring your stuffed animals out. What are their names? And it's those basic things. And a lot of the kids that I've seen over the last few years have just lost that, but yet they can swipe. And I've seen a lot of kids with fine motor skills. They don't have a lot of fine motor skills because they're not coloring. They're not using crayons. They're doing this, or they're just watching, and it's like the parents will say to me like, oh, they know their ABCs. I'm like, well, they can sing their ABCs because they know the song, but it's different. Can they recognize the letters in their name? Or they're just singing from rote memory. So it's just all about, and in the same thing in the next book for this Maggie Malone series, it's just about bringing things back and letting kids go back to being kids, being young, being innocent, going out and playing and using their imagination to create scenarios like, I'm the dinosaur, I'm the unicorn, like just those simple things. I feel like it's lost. It's been lost.
Okay. So your poetic book, Kiss You Love Goodbye.
Yeah.
That's the one that you've been writing over the years and you just published. Okay.
Yeah.
And this one talks a little bit more about your life.
Yes.
Okay. So you kind of put your life in a poetic form.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Great. And where can the listeners get a copy of your books and get in touch with you?
So Kiss You Love Goodbye, but all of my books are pretty much on Amazon, barnesandnoble.com, all of the places that you can purchase books. I have them sold locally in some of the local bookstores here in Connecticut where I live, or you can go to my website, wendyhallerauthor.com. You can always reach out to me through wendyhallerauthor@gmail.com. The other books that I'm working on, hopefully the second version of Maggie Malone, hopefully will be out this fall. And then we'll see when the other ones are. Poetry just kind of speaks to me and comes to me. And I've realized lately some of them are getting a little dark. I don't know why. I'm like,
well, you're expressing how you feel. That's what poetry is all about. So yeah.
Well, it's so true actually that you say that, because not to overshare, but I'm an overshare, but I'm going through menopause and I don't sleep at night. I sweat, I don't sleep. So I ended up writing a poem the other day called Mysteries of the Night.
Okay.
Like,
That's interesting.
no. So you're right. It is very, you're right. Write what you know. That's the big thing. Yeah. So I'm excited. I'm excited for the next poetry book. I really enjoy writing with emotion and really exploring emotions, especially as a teacher and working in preschool special education. A lot of our kids, that's what we work with. Like, how do you feel? Let's talk about it, because they don't know how to express emotions. Some of them end up hitting and biting and crying and all of the things that, little kids do because they don't know how. So it's really about having them use your words to express emotions. And, as adults, we feel so many feels that, it's like, okay, so let's put those feels into words.
So Wendy, do you have any last words to someone who wants to write and publish a book, especially a poetic book?
I think that, obviously just write. I have explored self-publishing. I did my poetry book through self-publishing. And then because the kids' book, you need an illustrator, I went the traditional route and used a publisher.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. And so I think for poetry, it's beautiful to be able to have that ability to self-publish through Kindle Direct Publishing is what I used. And because it gives you control over it, you can design your cover, you can really make it your own. And don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. Fear held me back. 30 years it took me. And don't be afraid. If you want to write a book, and I can't even tell you how many people since I've published. I published Kiss You Love Goodbye in May. Can't even tell you the number of people that have come up to me and have said, oh, I always wanted to write a book, or I always wanted to publish a book, or I have so many great ideas. Do it. Just do it. Find a good editor. I always say embrace the journey. You never know where it's going to lead. And even if you just do it for yourself, which is what I thought was going to happen, I thought I was just going to do this for myself, and it's taken on a whole other life. And especially now that I'm not able to go back to teaching right now, it's opened this window of creativity that I just can't stop.
That's good, Wendy.
Yeah.
That's
So
good.
it's like, okay, I have these physical limitations. I can't do this job, but this is something I can do. So.
Sounds great, Wendy.
Well,
Thank you so much for being on Beauty of Colors podcast.
Oh, thank you so much. And thank you for everything you do. I mean, I like I told you before, I've been listening to your podcast, and I just love all of the variety of people that you have on, and all of the messages. And it's so beautiful, and it is all about the beauty of colors.
That's what it's all about.
It really is. It's just, I love that so much. Now I'm thinking in my head, there's a poem in there. Leon, there's a poem. I'm dedicated to you.
Thanks.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you. All right.